Chipping away at the narrative requires discomfort. One way is to stop doing things that serve no purpose except to feed the narrative and people's neuroses, like wearing a mask outside. Be kind but firm. Takes courage but creates courage in others. Months ago in Phoenix, a few stopped masking, and now masks are rare. I think this is true for some things and won't work for some others, right? And I do think the question of outdoor masking has, for us, always been so obvious and straightforward that I think I may have mentioned, I don't know when it would have been, at some point, probably pre-vaccine stuff. So maybe like 14 months ago or so, I was walking in some park that I love with wide paths. You could easily stay away from people. And some woman with a mask yelled in my direction at someone behind me who was also masked, "Thank you for wearing a mask." I'm like, well, that was not only not direct to me, but clearly passive aggressive and obnoxious. And I thought about trying to engage her, and it's like, no, I refuse to wear a mask outside. We do still wear masks inside, as we are supposedly required to in the state of Oregon.
I would say we wear them inside when required to.
We wear masks inside when required to. We are beginning to hear tales of outside in other areas in Oregon, especially just even really just outside of Portland, some places not requiring them, but the signs on every store here is according to the governor's orders, everyone must be masked to come inside the store.
Yeah, but I think there is a question here because, as we've mentioned before, the evidence that cloth masks work is extremely thin, and the evidence that other masks work is dependent on them being worn in a particular way. And the chances that this is actually a place where, it makes sense to have this kind of authoritarianism is pretty low. So the question is, I know that personally, I wear them when required to because I am not interested in sending a signal to my fellow citizens that I am defecting on them, that I am in any way callous about their well-being. I would absolutely give the middle finger to the authorities that require these things when it obviously isn't about health, or they're so inept that they don't know, that they should be telling you, go outside and delight in the fact that you don't need a mask there. So the point is, but I can hear the argument from some people that will say, these are the same people who think that you are defecting on them by not becoming vaccinated. Right. Therefore, how is this any different? Well, because the point is, we are being dragged into a signal, the signal of the mask. It is the signal of a cult. I don't wish to broadcast that signal at all. Now, my vaccination status is nobody's business, really. Now, again, there are circumstances in which a particular disease with particular public health authorities and a particular vaccine could justify a mandate. So I'm not opting out on that. But I guess my point is, because the vaccine status is not obvious anywhere, this is a much more ambiguous thing. But so in California, in Oregon and Washington, you have to wear masks to go into retail businesses, regardless of your vaccination status. In California and one or two other states, I think at this point, apparently the signage and the rules are people who are vaccinated don't have to wear masks inside. And by and large, we hear they don't check, but they could. Right. And I guess I don't see the level of difference that you do between these two things, even as I continue to behave the way I have from the beginning. I put on the mask at the last possible moment before going in and rip it off as soon as I leave and get some dirty looks from people because, you're still close to the store. How could you be unmasked? But, whereas most of the country at this point isn't having to wear masks at all. And they're, so these masks, the way that they are being employed and the kinds of masks that people are wearing are very much like these vaccines in that they
apparently aren't doing the job that we're being told they do. They are signifiers of compliance, but they are inaccurate signifiers of health protection.
Yes, they are signifiers of compliance. And in fact, they are signifiers of compliance with nonsensical health advice.
Right.
And I would point people, I haven't been fully through it yet, but people should look at Chris Martinson's recent interview on mass formation and the idea that actually the nonsensicalness of the rituals is a feature, not a bug. But anyway, the point I would make is we are actually somewhere else. The conundrum of what to do about the mask, or more to the point, the vaccine mandates, is in some ways not well addressed by us at all. It really needs to be addressed by people who have been compliant, right? In effect, what we need is for people to recognize that the mandates themselves are a breach of our social contract with each other, as we discussed in the first part of the podcast. And the point is, if I was to go to a store, right? Let's say, the store said that whites only, right? I'm not going in that store, right? It doesn't matter that I may technically qualify. I'm not going in that store because I don't respect it. Now, if the government issued a mandate that said, actually, we need to segregate for whatever reason. So, blank and blank, on Thursdays, these stores will be whites only. So the only thing that was happening is that the store was complying. I'm still not going into the damn store, right? And so I think the point is the rebellion has to occur against the mandates, and it should unify those of us who are unvaccinated with those of us who are vaccinated, because clearly the circumstances does not justify this, and we are being segregated from each other for reasons that have not been shared with us. And so the point is, this is all immoral. You're wrecking our civilization, and you don't have a right to do it. So none of us are going to participate, right? That's the answer to this. And if, the 30% of people who actually believe this garbage and, haven't noticed all of the paradoxes, if those 30% are still going to participate, fine. But, they're not a civilization.
Yeah, they're not. I can't remember if I talked about this on air a week or 2 or 3 or 8 or something ago, but one of the things I loved most about moving to Portland was the prospect of live theater, which I've always loved. And my parents lived in London for many years. Every time I'd visit, we'd see a lot. And I grew up in LA seeing a certain amount. And there was a little bit in Ann Arbor, and we lived there, but there's none in Olympia. So I went many, many years without basically having access to much. And we had been seeing live theater. And when COVID hit and the tickets that I had bought, sort of disappeared into thin air, I said to the theaters in question, hold on to my, because they were desperate, and I felt so bad for the artists and the other live, the people who were doing work that required that you be live in person with people, but especially the artists and the musicians and such, and said, hold on to my money until you can perform again. And then I hope to, I hope to come back and be in person. And they're finally opening up. But they aren't saying you can't come if you're not vaccinated, but they are saying proof of vaccine or a negative test within some number of hours. And that means that technically we could go. But I guess for me, I felt like I was one of the staunchest supporters of, and I will remain, of the creators whose work depends on being in person with people, because we all need that. We all need, again, to reclaim our sense of collective joy and be together in person, experiencing something collectively. And it's those organizations that went the most woke the fastest during, in the aftermath of George Floyd, and that have now been, most eager to go with medically woke pronouncements. In some places, I've heard that, you can't even do a negative test. But frankly, all you have to do is do a negative test, really, for all 4 of us, for in what time frame, and, fuck you, frankly.
Yeah, well.
No.
No, I think this is exactly right. And the problem is, I don't want to do anything that signals that I believe in the fiction. I also don't
Right.
want to signal that I ever thought COVID wasn't serious or was itself a fiction, right?
Right.
The point is,
Right.
it was a serious disease. We now know a lot about how to treat it. There are certain people who are blocking our access to the things which would be useful in that battle and forcing us to do things that are pointless. And the
And
thing
then
is,
also blocking us from joyous human experience.
right. And so, let's put it this way. These people have the equivalent of an emblem, like Nike's swoosh, right? It is the mask. And they are causing even those of us who detest them to broadcast their advertisement and to signal that we are compliant with the such and such. And so, okay, maybe you don't have to be vaccinated, but then you're going to need a test. And the point is, this is all predicated on the idea that you need protection from me.
Right.
I think the opposite is more likely to be true.
Yeah.
And
In fact, there's a question to that effect here. You can keep, let me just see if I can.
Anyway, I think the point is, look, the time they're vaccinating children with a vaccine that does not aid children. They are vaccinating against a disease that does not harm healthy children. And they are vaccinating with a vaccine that, even if you granted them everything, we know nothing about its long-term implications, which matters more for children because they have longer lives ahead of them, right? When you then add in what we do know about
and they're in a rapid
myocarditis,
growth phase, and so injury may proceed faster,
right?
Depending on what kind of injury it is.
Obviously not in the children's interest, as far as we can tell. Compare the disease to the vaccine. Obviously not in the children's interest. Therefore, it is immoral. So the point is, that's the people whose brand we're now broadcasting with our masks, and whose fiction about who's dangerous to whom we're going to signal that we accept by, ponying up a test that says that we are in fact free of COVID. No, the fact is, we know how to deal with this disease. It's now manageable, right?
The tests are crap. The vaccines are crap. Your indicator of compliance is just that, because the indicators themselves are demonstrably crap.
Demonstrably crap and bad for people, and enough already. And so the point is, somehow what I want to figure out is some way to broadcast, I am no longer putting up with this shit. Without broadcasting, I don't take you, my fellow citizens' health seriously, because I do take that seriously. But I do not take these authorities. These authorities need to be taken seriously in a very different way. They are a menace to civilization, and they need to be removed yesterday so that we can get something like a proper response and get back to a functional civilization. You can't turn it upside down over myths.
Watch them.
Well, yeah, watch them.